dark psychology of the video gaming industry. This is a topic I think that has been overlooked by many people as we move forward in understanding the mind control techniques and mechanisms that the government and those in power use to captivate the minds of people and keep them in a state of unawareness as they create an atmosphere to continuously manufacture criminals. The video gaming industry in general is a government implanted program designed to pre-program the minds of young adults towards violence. There is a thing where when we look at, for those of us who are part of the older generations, I would say, we came up on games like Galaxy, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Tetris, sporting games, all of the games that were of the past, like for the people that played Atari and Sega Genesis, 99% of those games were goal-oriented. For those of us in our late 30s and our early mid-40s and up, if we look back at the old video games, all of those games were goal-oriented. Now, when we look at the video games of today, what do we have? 99% of the games that are in video games today are centered towards violence. So we have to ask ourselves, how did this transition take place? What caused this transition in the industry? It is a government program. The same people that owns the movie industry, in which we understand the subliminal nature and the dynamics of the movie industry. But when we look at the gaming industry, you got to realize it's the same circle of people that owns both industries. So when we're talking about these government agents, secret society members with adverse agendas, they own the gaming industry. And so what they're doing is perpetuating the impression of violence in society through the usage of video games. This is why the younger generation are more attracted towards aggression nowadays. If we look at their conversations on the video games today, like Halo and stuff like that, they talk about up in the stick. Have you ever listened to children playing these violent video games? You ever listen to them? I had the opportunity because my daughter used to play that with the video game where they drive around in a car, Grand Auto Theft. She used to play Grand Auto Theft, right? So she, in summertime, the kids be up late night, they be up late night. So I'm like, let me go see what she's doing, because she had the headphones. So I said, let's see what she's doing. So I took her I came up behind her, took her headphones off her, because my daughter doesn't curse or anything like that. She's a sweetheart. She doesn't get into that, but she kind of like on a video game, she's surrounded by some people that like, these kids, man, like, wow. And so I'm listening to the young guy on the video. He like, man, kill that motherfucker. Blow his head off. And I'm like, whoa. I say, hold up, man. This is ISIS dad, like you need to calm down, little bro. The attitude of violence is out of control, through the video games. So when I say that there is a dynamic that has went from goal-oriented video games like Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Tetris, from the Atari, the Sega Genesis generation, to the generation now where the majority of the video games are all violent. All of the video games that's coming out today is based on violence and aggression. And so when we look at the dynamics of the youth, and the direction that many of the youngsters are going in now, they're more aggressive than ever. Now, we understand that younger generations have impressionable minds, meaning that their brain is still in the process of developing itself. So the younger generation, teenagers included, and young adults, their brain is soaking in information. And is soaking in the information of its environment, and is soaking in the majority of its information from digital impressions. Now, these digital impressions are really attracting our children towards digital violence. Now, digital violence is when they're killing imagine your child on a video game and they're killing video characters for 6-7 hours straight. The question is, what does that do to the human psyche? Because we're talking about developing psychic powers. We're talking about developing our psychic abilities here, right? We're talking about creating and activating our supernatural abilities, right? And if we're in the process of activating our supernatural abilities, we must be very careful about what we are allowing our children and the youth to be exposed to through digital violence. Because the way that the mind operates, the brain does not distinguish between an actual physical act of violence and a digital act of violence. I'm going to repeat that. The brain does not distinguish between a physical act of violence and a digital act of violence. Now let's flip it in the inside. Let's take it here. How many of you guys actually had a dream to where you're like maybe urinating in a dream, like you went to the restroom in a dream, and then you wake up and you got to urinate real bad, damn near wet your pants? Because the way that the brain operates is that what you're dreaming is actually considered real to your brain. So if you get stabbed or cut in your dream, you might wake up with a slight pain on your side in the area the way you were stabbed or cut at in the dream. Or if you dream you fell and hit your leg in the dream and you wake up, for a split second, your leg may be hurting. Now, I know many of us have had those experiences. And that's primarily because the brain does not distinguish from the dream world, the difference between the dream world and the physical world. So if you dream something happening to you, your body's going to respond to it. This is the same type of effect that happens with digital exposure. So when our children are overexposed to digital violence through the violent nature of video games, what ends up happening? These impressions are implanted within their psyche, and now they're overly aggressive. Now they're more combative in the home. They don't want to listen, and they're just more combative, and they're quick to violence. They're quick to react physically because they went 7, 8, 9 years of playing violent video games that are violent oriented. And what happens is that these video games program their mind. And this is why it is a dark psychology tactic of the government agency. It's part of global mind control. They're in the business of manufacturing criminals. So yeah, there are circumstances, social, political, and economic circumstances that are very responsible for assisting the process of manufacturing criminals. But when we look at the digital world, the video gaming industry is implanted, because there's a lot of agents in there too, just like the movie industry. They're implanting and impressing images and actions of digital violence in the minds of the youth. It's a practice of dark psychology. In order to disable the system that is corrupting our minds, in order to disable the system that is tearing down the moral fabric of who we are trying to become, we have to understand the tools that the system are using. And the video games are one of them. They're barely no more goal-oriented, the video games anymore. You remember when Subway Surfer first came out, everybody wanted to play Subway Surfer. Then when Halo came out and Army of Four and all these violent games came out, all the kids left the goal-oriented games and they were directed towards the digital violent games. If you look at the marketing and promotion of the goal-oriented video games versus the marketing and promotion of the violent-oriented video games, you'll find that there is a 70% increase in marketing for games that are violent-oriented. You see? And that's just something I wanted to share today about the dark psychology of video gaming industries and the mind control that the government agents that work in these industries are using to pre-program our children's mind towards violence. This is Medicine Man. Peace. Y'all have a very blessed day.